This is a topic that we've been hoping to dive into because for weeks now, college campuses have become ground zero for protests over the war in Gaza. And last night, things really escalated at my alma mater, UCLA. Police were called in by the university in response to violence that broke out. Now, counter-demonstrators attacked a barricade surrounding the pro-Palestinian encampment, with fights breaking out between both sides. People threw fireworks and others used pepper spray to defend themselves. Last night in New York, police used a large armored vehicle with a special bridge to enter and clear a Columbia University building that protesters occupied earlier this week. Around 300 people were arrested. So to help us understand what is going on, where do we go from here, where are the solutions, we've got Rabbi Susan Goldberg joining us from Los Angeles. Thank you so much for being here. I always see you as a guiding light. So let me start with this. Your reaction to all of the unrest last night at UCLA. What are your thoughts on the protests? Please, you have the floor.
Yeah, I mean, just seeing the opening images you just shared, it's so tragic to see what's happening on college campuses. And UCLA was really horrible last night. This group of counter-protesters really violently attacked the encampment. My niece is actually a student there, and she went to the ER to support a friend last night. And I'm glad to see that our local Jewish Federation put out a statement that these counter-protesters do not represent the values of the Jewish people. So, I mean, it's doesn't have to be like this, is I think my main message. There are other colleges and universities who are dealing with this very differently, with really much more elevated, thoughtful leadership. College campuses should be a place where students express their deepest feelings about what's happening in the world. And I think all of us would agree that there's tremendous suffering going on in this war. And it is hard not to be moved to try to want to stop it and to figure out how to make this better. So students have a long history of being able to express themselves. That's really important. And the second thing that's really important is that students need to be safe. All students need to be safe on campus. And if particular groups are being attacked, I know that there's a diversity of experience for both Jewish students on campus and for Muslim Arab students on campus. I've talked to many Jewish students over the past 2 weeks in Los Angeles, in Chicago, in New York, some of them feeling that the protests on their particular campus are places of free expression and dialogue, and they are not feeling concerned. And then other students who have heard horrible anti-Semitic things that should never be said. And if we look at different examples, we see that some universities are actually doing this really well. We can point to the Northwestern University president. He released a beautiful statement today after they had a dialogue with the students in the encampment and a willingness to meet some of their grievances, and which has led to the encampment coming down. Same thing at Brown University. So these scenes of police and counter-protesters and violence does not need to be how it is on our campuses.
Well said.
So let's talk about the pro-Palestinian demonstrators. Who are they and what are they demanding?
Well, I think it's important to note that there are the students and then there are the counter-protesters on all sides who are coming to campus who are not the students. This is a consistent thing I'm hearing from students. It also was the case last night, that it really appears that the people doing the violence at UCLA were not students. So there are on campus, if we talk about the students, who are really reacting to the atrocities of the past months and what's happening, and want to ask their universities about what is the policy of the university in terms of investment in Israel and in terms of investment in the war. And so that seems to be the primary questioning that students are doing who have set up these encampments.
I agree with you strongly, even as a Jewish woman, that colleges are a bastion of free speech, and that's where we've held some of our biggest debates that have changed the world. So I am so glad you said that. But I do want to get to this. Some Jewish students, and I know many of them, have actually come forward saying they're feeling unsafe, okay? They're feeling attacked on their campuses. I do know about last week an Orthodox rabbi associated with Columbia sent a message to 290 students to go home as soon as possible. Where do things cross that line for you, Rabbi?
Yeah, I think it's important to bring up Columbia. That has been an example of how things have gone wrong and then gotten worse from there. I mean, really a lack of leadership. And you can see how a lack of leadership spirals out of control. And yes, I have heard from a student in Columbia who has felt unsafe as a Jewish student, especially as a student who's wearing a yarmulke and is identifiable as a Jewish student. I've also heard from another Jewish student at Columbia who is not feeling that, who has felt that in the best times the protests have been a safe place. And so I think that where it crosses the line is when there have been anti-Semitic slurs, anti-Semitic placards, anti-Semitic messaging that is shared at these events. At USC, there has been a swastika found on campus. I mean, there is no doubt that there are elements of anti-Semitism that are being expressed in this. And I think wherever these sort of sentiments are said or felt, they need to be addressed immediately.
Agreed.
Because they don't speak to the deeper values of wanting peace and humanity and to care for everyone. And so it's really important that those get called out and spoken to immediately.
Yeah, thank you for that.
And I would say on both sides, I just want to be inclusive. There's zero tolerance for anti-Semitism, and there's zero tolerance for anti-Palestinian hatred and for for Islamophobia. I just want to state that.
Yeah, and again, I would say that I would encourage people to look at the statement that the president of Northwestern just released, because it really does hold that reality of making a safe campus for all students.
All right, Rabbi, I think we have like 10 seconds left here, but you brought this up, but let's talk specifics. Universities have been responding to these protests in all sorts of ways. What are they getting right and what are they getting wrong, in your opinion? Because we've heard from presidents of universities, I guess in my opinion, saying some pretty crazy things.
Yes. You know, I think part of it, too, is what is the culture on campus? Is there an environment of dialogue and discussion and debate that is so at the heart of what this country is about, a place of civil discourse? And we know even beyond this issue of the war in Gaza, there has been a real difficulty as of late for people in this country to have dialogue, discussion, and debate. Somehow people have lost the ability to talk to people who don't agree with you. And where else should that be modeled but that on a university campus?
That's right. Well said.
That is supposed to be the environment of learning and discussion and a rigorous attention to values and ideas. And so campuses that have creative spaces for dialogue and have not gone after the expression of protest with a lot of violence are doing a better job. I've talked about Brown and Northwestern. There's Pitzer College. There's Occidental College here close to me in Los Angeles. There are examples. And Dartmouth has had a long tradition of having dialogue and debate about Israel-Palestine. So hopefully, you know, I'm an optimist, as you all know, and a hopeful person. This could lead to a shift for college campuses to come to a place of knowing that they really need to cultivate a university culture that allows for deep discussion, learning, and dialogue.
Well said, Rabbi. Thank you so much for always being a pillar of humanity, and we appreciate you for joining us today. DBL Nation, you can check out more from Rabbi Susan online. Follow her at Nefesh LA on Facebook and YouTube, or check her out on Instagram at Rabbi Susan. Thank you again for joining us.